Sure. I think that as a customer, a lot of times customers come in and they don't necessarily know, you know, what kind of payment for the vehicle that they're looking at. I think from a payment perspective, that's probably a big gap for customers. For the longest time, you could buy a car for $300 to $500 and you could buy a good, reliable car. And that's a little bit tougher now, especially with rates going up and things of that nature. People are, especially the high credit people are really, really used to paying, 2-3% interest, and that's just not here anymore. I wish it was, but it's not. It would certainly help us to get to where people want to be a lot easier. It doesn't help us any at all that rates are high. Unfortunately, we don't get to make that call. We just get to send it in and be the bearer of bad news. But what I would say is that the biggest, gap there is, somebody comes in and they want to buy $40,000 truck. Well, unless you have a lot of equity in your trade or you have a lot of money down, it's not going to be $500. Unfortunately, I wish it was. I could sell them all if I could, if it was, but you just can't do that. But I think we try to be really mindful. One of the things that we do whenever we bring a customer in, if the customer will allow us, because they won't always allow us, there's always a little bit of defense with some customers, and they feel like if they give you a little bit of information, then it's going to, somehow turn on them and they're not going to get as good a deal. But we try to ask some questions up front to get a gauge for like where you're at and what you're looking for. So, we'll ask like, hey, ideally what kind of payment do you want to be in? What kind of price bucket do you want to be in? If you have questions about interest rate, we're going to tell you, hey, you're an 800 credit score, you might be able to get something in the fives right now. We'll be transparent with you. Obviously anybody that buys a car off us, if we get to the point of talking numbers, we're going to show it to you right there on black and white. There's not going to be any surprises. You'll have your total breakdown. You'll have the amount you're going to finance. You're going to have your interest rate on the paper. There's not going to be some range that your payment could be, from, $30 range, because that's nonsense. That's not true. If you have the interest rate, you can do the payment to the penny. We're showing you the exact payment, exactly what it is. When you go back to finance, it's going to be exactly what you talked about out here. It's not going to magically go up $20. So I think a little bit of that discourages people because they've gotten so used to, they come out here with this range and, it could be $20 to $30 different. Well, okay, that's a lot for some people. And to be honest with you, that's just a tactic to try to, funnel some money in here and there. We don't do that here. I don't think it's right to do that. I think you should, once you get to the point that you've got the interest rate, you should show them the interest rate. The customer should be informed on what they're purchasing, how much they're giving for it, what their interest rate is, and all those things. If you've done a good job at making sure that, you've put them in the path that they can afford and you're giving them a good deal, then more times than not, everything's going to be just fine. But the thing of it is, you need to let people know what they're signing up for. I think that's extremely important. You're going to get a lot less blowback. If you try to sign people up on something that they can't afford, then, all you're doing is digging a hole for them and you down the road.